Coming to paperback and e-readers from SJS Direct, Isis, House of Isis, the goddess next door takes on a hustling Hotep high priestess in Harlem in this Afrocentric Isis series adventure. Pre-order Isis, House of Isis on Amazon.com today. This is going to be the final video in my series, The Decline of White Supremacy. And if you want to take a look at the other 3 videos in the series, you may do so by clicking the link in the description box. Now in this 4th video, I'm going to explain why the white male is no longer the dominant male in Western civilization. And when it comes down to the white male, he has enjoyed being the dominant male in civilization for centuries because he was a master of weapons and he was a master of war. And one of the things that kept him as the dominant male, in addition to being a master of weapons and a master of war, was the fact that he had complete control over his female. Unfortunately, over the last 100 years, he has lost control over his female, and because he made compromises with first the women's suffrage movement by giving women the right to vote, and then giving more concessions to women during the feminist movement of the 1960s and 1970s by allowing them to subvert affirmative action, he has gone from being the dominant to becoming the submissive. And many of these white males still believe that they are the dominant. Unfortunately, when you take a look at the bigger picture as it relates to the West, the white male has lost tremendous power over the last 50 years, and his authority has been eroded and undermined to the point where he is no longer anything but a figurehead in terms of power. The white male these days has no real power because he has given all of his power to the white female. And that's why we have gone from a white supremacist state controlled by white male authority to a gynocentric state controlled by white feminist female authority. And in this gynocentric state, white females control all of the methods of production, and they control all of the infrastructure in the West. For example, here in America, 70% of all the jobs are controlled by women. Almost 53% of the population is female, and the majority of females control a majority of the votes. So with females controlling the economy and the voting bloc, they are the new dominant in America. And when it comes down to the white female, she now has the economic power, and now she's trying to grab political power through movements such as Me Too and Time's Up. And with this power that this white female has in society now being the dominant, she's using that power to oppress men and is trying to make efforts to impose gynocentric Jim Crow on men. And many men, especially white men, are now starting to wake up and realize how much they have been emasculated over the years. Now, as I take a look at the culture of America, I could slowly see the emasculation of the American male, starting as far back as the 1960s with the sitcom Bewitched. And as I started watching more and more television and seeing the presentation of the bumbling, stumbling dad, this was all social engineering to create what was feminists called the soft male, because they wanted to create this kinder, gentler male. And as children were being born and this culture was being presented to them, they were being turned into these beta males. Now, the beta male was the first generation born from the 1970s all the way up to, I say, about the 1990s. And these males were designed to be the first generation of submissive males. And these beta males, they were very submissive, and they were the ones who allowed women to gain more power and more authority because they had been taught culturally that women were leaders, women were authority figures, and that they had to submit to female authority, especially white female authority. And there were some people who were getting frustrated at this system. This is why we saw an uptick in things like domestic violence and mass shootings, because many of these males were starting to chafe at these at the power structure because they were starting to see that the power structure was becoming more and more female. And with this second generation of beta males, which many call the soy boys, these were males who were completely effeminate, and they were not only submissive to female authority, these males were literally just like women. So these next generation of males is completely submissive to women and completely defer to them. The beta males, they are submissive, but some of them believe that they have some semblance of authority and they make covert contracts. But the soy boys, these guys are completely submissive. So the white male has destroyed his own power structure, and the reason why he's destroyed his own power structure is because he feared black male authority, fearing that if black males got power, they would subjugate white males in the same way they did since slavery. Unfortunately, what they didn't understand was most black males were no threat to white supremacy. All most black males wanted was to be able to have control over their own homes and control over their own economy. Something that would have benefited white supremacy because competition is a good thing and competition helps economies grow. However, when you have gynocentrism, there is not going to be any sort of economic growth because gynocentrists are mostly consumers, not producers. And when you have a gynocentric state, it is focused on meeting the emotional needs of females, not meeting the economic needs of a country. So when you have these females, this is why they keep demanding more and more leave for things like periods and pregnancy and asking to eat more resources and not thinking about things that will allow you to build a strong infrastructure because that's what females usually do. And this is what's leading to the white male becoming frustrated because he's looking at the situation and he's realizing he is not the dominant anymore. He is not the dominant male and he is not a male authority figure. So he looks at the culture and he's starting to see that he is no longer the male authority figure and he has been emasculated by his female. And because he has been emasculated by his female, this is why we have seen this uptick in escalation in violence, such as mass shootings. Many of these males realize they have no more power in the Western society, and that that power now rests in the hands of the female. And the female is no longer teaching a white supremacist culture to her children. No, she is teaching a gynocentric and feminist culture to her children, and white supremacy is now been changed into gynocentrism. And this is what's got many white males frustrated. They realize that they no longer have male authority. They realize that their culture is no longer based on male authority. And they realize that there is no way for them to take back power due to the way that they have been culturally raised. And when it comes down to that third generation of soy boys, the way they have been genetically bred, their masculinity has been bred out of them. So when you take a look at the white male, he is a male who is on decline, and he is a male who has lost all of his power. The only thing that many white supremacists don't understand is how they lost their power. Many of them want to blame foreigners, blacks, and many other men for them losing their power. But the reason why they lost their power and their masculinity is due to the fact that a generation of white males who were a part of that baby boomer group were so selfish in their attempts to get laid back then that they conceded the power that people would need in future generations. Just like wealth is passed from generation to generation, male authority is passed from generation to generation because this is what is taught as a culture from generation to generation in your media and in your culture. And when white supremacists allowed feminists to get power, they then, with the help of liberals, changed the culture from a white male authoritarian culture to a feminist and gynocentric culture, a culture that is designed to elevate females to a high position and make them appear like they are the leaders and authority figures, and present males as incapable of being anything but a complete bumbling, stumbling idiot. And this is why we have many of these males out here who cannot see themselves as dominant and being leaders and authority figures, because this has been taught in the culture. And worse, now it has been masculinity has literally been bred out of these males in two ways. One, through this propaganda media, which promotes beta males as a social norm, and two, through that second generation of beta males, the soy boys, who literally have no masculinity due to them ingesting numerous products which are filled with estrogen and female hormones. So all the masculinity has been bred out of the white male, and he can no longer be supreme because the first generation of beta males, is not mentally supreme, and the second generation of beta males is not genetically supreme. So you have two generations of white males who are incapable of taking a leadership role or building a business or building infrastructure or taking control of things through formal male authority, because in their minds, whenever they are given a position of that type of responsibility, it overwhelms them and they wind up either abdicating to a female or they wind up quitting the position because they just can't handle it, because they are mentally and genetically incapable of handling such a position of power, because they do not see a value in male authority, nor do they see a value in masculinity and male power, and they don't understand that you need these tenets in order to maintain a civilization. This is why the white power structure in the West is on decline, because if the male is not taught how to be a leader, an authority figure, and not taught how to see himself as the supreme leader, then he is not going to be able to maintain his civilization or his culture, because his female has to see him as the leader and authority figure, and male authority has to be imposed on her if you hope to have a civilization maintained and hope to have wealth passed on from generation to generation. If you do not have this, the female will just go out here and use up all those resources and then monkey branch to the next group of men, and that is what's going to lead to your culture and civilization going into a complete decline, because as she lets others into your civilization, what they're going to do is they're going to eradicate your culture and then bring their culture in and then make their culture the dominant culture. And that is what is happening in the West right now. And the reason why that is happening right now is because the white males in the 1960s, the baby boomers, made the grave mistake of trusting the white feminist and giving her female authority instead of sharing male authority with black men. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to read some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.